the chair just said, it's about a 10% variance, and that's what we found from 5 bidders for a 17,000 square foot, very complex building. Nothing compared to this one. This one is very simple, relatively speaking, than a parallel of care building. And I would say that the average, you can find out the industry cost for such a building as this, and it would be definitely below $300 a square foot. So that would certainly put the estimate that our board has come up with at 3.8 well within the range, in my experience, by the way. But apart from that, I have a concern of governance, I guess. I've heard Steve present and Steve past. Mr. Van der Zam and Mr. Ford. Present Chair, I'd like to ask you, you mentioned earlier that it's hard to get impossible or something like that, not easy to get 66 2/3 vote, which is what is needed for major decisions. And then I think the past chair indicated that we don't have to have secret votes. Now, I'm not going to want to get into an argument in detail about your governance and the laws down here in Florida. But suffice to say, I have a question. At what point would the board consider that they would need to come back to us as shareholders? Never mind the fact that we're residents. We're residents after we have laws made to govern us, and then our job is to abide by them as residents. But we're also here to make them as shareholders. And if we're not interested enough in what goes on in our community as a corporation to vote, then I've got a real problem with that from a governance point of view. So I'd like to know, where would the board see going for a vote? How would that vote be conducted to reach 66 2/3? If I were to decide tonight to run and get a bunch of guys together, a bunch of folks together with lots of money, more than I have, and we put a non-solicited bid to buy this property for development purposes, how would you conduct and come to a decision on that point of view? And I'm not saying in terms of clubhouse, I think you've all done a good job up there, and thank you very much.
Being realistic, you elected a board of directors by secret ballot in a way. We have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the assets of this association. And we will do that. We also have to abide by those statutes that say if we want a new facility, we have to get approval of 2/3, 501 votes to get that approved. The same would apply if somebody offered us $751 million to buy this park. I'll bet you we'd get 2/3 vote right away. I know I'd vote for it as much as I like this park. But being realistic, in order to get 2/3 vote, I feel, if at all possible, we have to change our marketing approach to getting people to turn in votes. We can't do it the way we've done before. We can't send out the ballots or the voting and expect people. There's too many absentee voters or owners. We'd have to set up, suggested, somebody said, well, let's do like fundraisers. Let's set up a bank of telephones and get people on the phone making direct calls to these people, trying to get, just an estimate, we would probably need to get 600 out of 751 votes back in order to have any chance of getting 501 positive votes. Now, we tried before to change that in our own bylaws, to change that 2/3 vote. And the discussion came out, well, what do we want to change it to? We don't want to go to 50% because that's too easy to make changes. Do we want 60%? And that seemed to be kind of a common area at the time. We couldn't do it. We just couldn't do it. So, you elect the board. If you don't like what we do, you replace us, vote us out. But I look at this year, we had 3 openings. We had 2 people apply. So if we're concerned about this community, people, we better start volunteering and getting involved, because
Right
you
on,
need to
right
make
on.
the
Thank you,
decision.
Steve.
Steve, can I say just a couple of things? Just for starters, if we wanted to sell Fairway Village, it has to be a 90% vote. That's a little harder to get even still. But the other thing I think people are missing is when we're talking $3.8 million for a new clubhouse, we're talking for a direct replacement. And if we don't do a direct replacement, then we have to have that 2/3 vote. But a direct replacement has to be basically this same facility, but brand new. So if you want to know what it's going to be like if we do a direct replacement, it's going to be basically the same square footage. We're going to have all the same amenities, because we have to have it to be a direct replacement. Now, that doesn't mean we can't make our dance floor 5% bigger. I mean, there's small amounts, but the new clubhouse really is a direct replacement, and you'll have basically the same facility, but brand new. A direct replacement is not a material alteration, so you wouldn't have to do that. Any change in the clubhouse would become a material alteration, and then you'd have to have 2/3.
Nuttall 456. I hear what you're saying, but it seems to me that if you're going to spend that number of dollars on probably the biggest asset in the park, you may not have a legal, but I think you certainly have a moral obligation to seek a vote from shareholders.
Okay, thanks. Doug Floyd, Unit 413. There have been a number of technical assessments related to renovation and improvement of this building. Is it timely now to actually, from the point of view of continuing this discussion, to spend a bit of money and to know more about what replacement would be? In other words, earlier somebody asked the question, well, what does $4 million buy us? And the question, and the answer was, well, we don't know yet. But wouldn't it make sense to actually, have some concept drawings at least prepared and have an update and a confirmation even of that $3.85 million now rather than downstream, so that we all are better informed going forward with this question and this issue?
And your answer is yes, we can. We can interview and retain an architectural engineering firm and pay them to develop schematic plans, which is a general concept. They can establish materials. You're going to pay a substantial money for that service, but we still need to give them some idea of what we want. Are we doing a new building? We doing a renovation? We developed a program. We've discussed and interviewed all the various social organizations in this park and developed a program statement. But that's as far as we've gone. Do we want to take that statement and use it as a basis for developing a schematic? And once we develop those costs for that, you may know you may have a little more accurate cost estimate, although I'm questioning that, but you'll know what it looks like, but then where are we? We're right back to where we are right now.
Could I make a statement?
Can I just?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
All right. Notwithstanding what you said, and I understand that I've had both public sector and private sector experience, engineering. And, one needs to know about the scope of what you're endeavoring, at least in a general sense, and have some cost estimates before you proceed and make a decision about anything. So I'm just concerned that And believe me, I'm not being negative about
No, sure,
replacement. I'm just saying, you've spent already some money on doing technical assessments of this building. So why not a portion, and I don't think it needs to be that expensive, to get at least some schematics done, some concept drawings, so people then understand and have confidence knowing that
Okay.
$4 million is going to buy your total replacement for this building.
Okay, let me ask you a
So,
question.
you know what I'm saying?
Have you read the
I know,
Wanamaker?
and I understand what you're saying about even the reservations about the cost estimates.
Have you,
I understand completely.
have you read the Wanamaker Jensen report done in 2010? They had a program development, space allocation plan. They
Yes,
did a
and that's what you're
single
basing.
line sketch of those needs, and they put an estimate using construction people to put together an estimate for that work.
Okay. But the earlier somebody asked about what $4 million buys us, and your answer was not abundantly
It buys
clear.
you 17,000, roughly 17,000 square feet of space.
Okay. Which is what, that's the scale of this
That's the
building?
new structure.
This building is just over 16,000.
And so the 3.85 million is an update of that estimate from that date?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. By actually the same company, the Wanamaker Jensen, they have a design build or a department that updated that estimate for us.
Okay, I don't know how many people have seen that and what the schematics show, but my sense is that, it would be helpful to actually communicate that to people. And if it's online, I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that report
I had
is.
difficulty getting access to I tried, but I had difficulty getting access to these reports
I
online.
understand.
So really, it's when any big change takes place. I mean, communication is extremely important, and to be able to. I mean, you did a great job today in terms of going through all the detail of these previous reports. But then I'm stuck a bit because I don't quite understand. Well, okay, but what does replacement really mean? Because where's the level of detail comparable to renovating this building? That's my point.
Okay, fair enough.
Hey, can I make a comment? Sorry. If we got a 66% vote, then we could change the building and make it our dream clubhouse. We're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot saying, fine, we've got the right to legally go ahead with this thing as long as the footprint doesn't change for this building. I don't know what numbers they're using for the cost of construction, but this isn't just a construction project, it's a tear down project too. So there's a cost associated with taking this building off this lot, increasing the infrastructure that's coming to this lot, and then building a new building. So to say it's a little over $200 a square foot, that seems awful low to me. I honestly believe it's going to be well in excess of $4 million. But the point is, if we went for a vote and we got everybody on our side and we can design the desired building rather than making do with this, we need this amount of space for dances and whatever. That's a given. So, whether the library is another 10 foot larger and, the card room's not there and this and that, it's really subtle changes to an existing structure. But basically, they've got to fit the new requirement in this footprint. If they go ahead with, we don't need your vote, we're going to go ahead with it. But if you got 66% vote, we can design the ultimate clubhouse. And then something we can all be proud to have, and finish it nicely and everything, make it a real wonderful structure.
Can I say something, Tim?
Sure.
I just
Scott,
wonder-
we will get to you in a minute.
I just sort of wonder why all of you came tonight. It was because it was this big meeting about the clubhouse. Everything that Steve read for the first 45 minutes to an hour has already been said at our meetings. And you would have known that if you'd come to other meetings. So I hate it when people, I don't hate it, I'm glad you're all here. But if you've been coming all these the last couple of years, you would have known all of this to begin with, and you would have saved him an hour's speech.
Do it.
Hey, Steve. It's Scott, 623. This park came into being as a residence-owned park with an assessment, correct? No? Was there not an assessment?
Why?
Didn't each resident pay a certain amount of money to own this park?
Yes, $5,900 to secure a bank loan.
$5,900. So a $4 million structure with 751 units works out to about $5,300 per unit. So has there been any consideration, and I know that not everybody is fond of an assessment, but has there been any consideration to partially funding or on I would pay $5,000, then compensating me back in some other format in the way of the maintenance fees or whatever? Has there been any consideration to doing that?
We're not there yet. Yeah, there's been talk about that. It becomes a bookkeeping nightmare, but that's okay. You make books do what the world wants done. So yeah, there's been talk about that. I think the conversations have been about a peanut butter assessment versus you're going to kick in $5,000. Well, then I'll pick on Julia. She says, "Well, I can't do 5, but I can do 2457, and I can't do that, but I can do 200." I mean, so it's been talked about. I don't think we're at that level of granularity yet to understand exactly, to the previous gentleman's point, what that number looks like. You know, we're at the onion peeling stage, folks. We're still peeling back the onion and getting finer granularity, finer granularity. The purpose of this meeting was to help delineate repair versus replace and bring everybody up to speed on all the documents that we've had at our disposal as well. So yes, we've thought about it. That's about as far as it's gotten, but it's not off the table.
I'd like to speak to that topic. What a lot of parks have done in this situation is gone for a mortgage or whatever, and it's an open mortgage. So if you want to pay down the $5,000 as opposed to paying 6 or 7 by the time the interest charges are paid over the years, then that's your privilege. What happens, it goes into a 2-tier maintenance fee. The ones that didn't pay for quite often the share, but anyhow, those that didn't pay for it versus those that do. It's a little more administration from Tiffany's point of view, but that's the preferred route that I would rather go is, here's my money, leave me alone, leave my maintenance fee down where it should be, and we'll get along great. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here that would favor that approach.
And if I can say something, the office is always willing to do whatever we have to do to facilitate anything that needs to be done here in Fairway Village.
I have a few words to say about assessments. I don't know how many people on the board were here when we built a new building for the office. They raised your maintenance fee $20 for 2 years. They said as soon as it's paid, we'll decrease the $20. Well, I've been here for 22 years. I didn't see no decrease in the $20. Every year it goes up.
Steve, I'd like to add something to the question that came from back here, and that was the accuracy of the estimate of $4 million. Clearly, it's a budgetary quote. I'll just add, and you correct me, but this is my experience having been there. But Wanamaker Jensen put together a very detailed budgetary estimate. I think it was about 4 pages long, included all of the demolition, all of the permitting, all of the demolition of hazardous waste, right on through the final construction and permits. So the line items were there. Do they cover all the unknowns for this building in Fairway Village? Very unlikely, but they caught most of them, and they probably have some that weren't going to be there. So what that says to me, if you've ever done major capital project execution, is a budgetary quote tends to be a very safe type quote because you're going to make sure you don't underestimate components. So Steve even gave, or the board I should say, even gave Wanamaker Jensen a chance last August to correct their estimate. And that's, we also have that number, correct, Steve?
That's correct. That's the one we're using.
So we have two numbers, and they're based on great detail, but great detail of an unknown facility. The facility is what you're sitting in plus 1,000 square feet, and everything brought up to Florida Building Code. That's what that facility is. It's being estimated. So if we want to change that, the numbers certainly will change, but I would say that within the 20%, you're probably looking at a good number that Steve has mentioned in his preamble here. So I think you would have some confidence on that one. The other thing that I would like to bring up is, my understanding anyway, as the liaison to the board on this issue of the clubhouse, is that we have about $140,000 check sitting in the bank that Bankers Life gave to us to replace the roof. That has to be done by July, is that correct, Steve?
That's correct.
If we just decide to do nothing tonight, by July, we're going to have a new roof on a building that we don't want. So if we are of a mind to move forward, and the board, based on the assessment we had tonight, I believe is very likely, and by the way, I support Paul Johnson's approach. I'd love to get 501 votes, and I think the board would too. But they're within their right to say this is a direct maintenance requirement. So we would do a direct replacement. Now we're not going to get what Paul says. We're going to get this same building, except new materials and new heights, and all the codes will be met. And we have to tell then Bankers Life, July isn't good because we're going to do all this work. I'm going to redo the structure up here, and then we'll put a roof on this new building or this improved building. You following me? Otherwise, I believe the threat is looming, and I'm looking through the drapes here at Tiffany of Bankers Life saying, I want my $140,000 back. Okay, that's a very small amount compared to $4 million, but it's a very serious consideration at the moment. We need to make a decision and get off top dead center. If we're going to do a direct replacement, the board could move on that starting at the next board meeting. If we want to do a new building, as Paul is talking about, and I think probably many of us would, if we're going to do the work, we'd love to see that. We got to hustle really quick. We got to find 501 votes that say, yes, you can do significant material alterations. So Steve and the board have a big challenge in front of them, and tonight is a hugely pivotal meeting. So please help any way you can. Thanks.
So Steve, just to follow up a couple things. To move forward with a 66% vote, that's a 60-day process in itself by law. And the other hair in the butter, so to speak, is once they start replacing this roof, if they pass those 30, 50% thresholds, it's a whole nother can of worms, because now you don't have a choice. You either bring it up to speed, stop, vacate, and replace, or whatever. So there's a lot of unknowns still.
Jan Wallace, 308 again. I worked on the bylaw committee for probably nine or 10 years until 2018 late. And we tried to get approval to change one of the items in our proprietary agreement. We could not get 500 votes, period. I think we got, I'm looking around to see if there was anybody else on that committee with us. We did everything. We sent out mail flyers. I called. We divided up the call list of all the people who were not in residence. I made phone calls to numbers of people to try to get them to vote, yay or nay, you know. And I think we came in with just under 400 people that voted. So for you to say that you have to have 501 votes positive, I'm saying good luck.
To expand on your point, that was just for a legality change to bring our bylaws up to current code by law. It wasn't even a emotional item like a clubhouse. So it's a challenge.
To answer, Anne Frampton, 620. To answer Mr. Director Johnson's question, Florida Statute 719-1055 quotes a mortgage placed on a property is covered by a lien. Okay? it gives the number of shareholders who are to vote. I believe it was 2/3. I'm not positive on that. And a quorum, a proxy is not allowed to be used in that vote. So that's 719-1055.
Yeah. Wayne Hawes, 177, about the vote. Whenever we did the petition back in January, we had had about 200 people sign to hold this meeting tonight, and one of the things that we asked in that petition is not only to hold this meeting, but to also have a vote. I think we're all, well, my opinion, the community is involved in this situation. If we provide facts and figures of replacement costs and building, repairing, replacing, fixing, all those things, the community will vote. We should have had, hopefully we would have had that vote tonight so that we would know whether to throw that money for the roof down the drain or to fix it. But we didn't. But as soon as we can get to the vote of the community, the better this community will be.
I have a quick question. Dave Regal, number 78. We're new, so we don't have the vested interest that many of you have here, but just a couple of observations. Number one, we're limited by a lake and a golf course and a recreational, shuffleboard area and homes. So I'm not sure how much bigger you could make the footprint. What does always comes to mind to me is just when I look at this clubhouse, even if we had the same footprint, when you raise the ceiling, you've got maybe a metal roof, you've got something that looks, nicer, newer, maybe you've got a nice stone facade around the outside. I haven't heard anybody mention the idea that we're probably our value of our homes are going to go up $5,000 in a heartbeat. So, I mean, the idea of, I think you set out a good comparison, I'm not sure which gentleman did it, that it's not going to be that much more one way or the other in terms of our increased maintenance fees. I can't imagine why anybody would be against this, quite frankly, at all. So, I mean, we're going to get our money back when we sell. We're going to, more and more people are going to they drive through here and they can say, oh my gosh, look at that clubhouse. I mean, that's a major, major selling feature to me. So that's my point.
Nancy Archer, 623. We've been here, this is our 4th winter now. The 4th year we've heard about a new clubhouse. It seems like the meetings, it's the same thing over and over and over, and nothing seems to be getting done. Let's get on with this and get a replacement done.
Is that it? Just in closing, I would like to point out that building codes, we've talked a lot about building codes tonight. Building codes are minimum requirements for building design, minimum. Building codes were put in place for the life, safety, concern of the public and the people. So I think to keep that in mind, minimum requirements are building codes, and they're concerned about the life, safety of us. Now, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Oops, one more.
Right.
Okay.
Jackie Clinton, 120. As a shareholder, okay, we're a community here, and we're wanting to get on with this, as somebody else just mentioned, that we've been hearing it. We've been only here, this is our 5th year, but 5 years, and for 4 years we have been hearing all about the new clubhouse. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? The pros, the cons, and so on. And when it comes down to the shareholders, those of us that are going to respond, and those that aren't going to respond, well, maybe those that aren't going to respond, why do we as the responsive ones, what can we do to make those other people